Welcome to episode number 225 of the Beyond Social Media Show, the podcast for all of you marketing, advertising, public relations, and communications professionals. We are recording live on YouTube on April 20th, April 19th. We got the wrong date on here. April 19th, 20th tomorrow, 2018. Bunch of things to talk about
2019.
This week. 2019, yes. Including rail control to Major Tom, thought activation, Walmart Yodel Boy, healing light, Spacey bedtime stories, surveillance society, IDing reality, robot conquers Ikea, AI Flintstones, Starbucks Blacklash, and one-page internet. BL kicks it off every week with Best Story of the Week. BL, what was that?
Well, I'm a New Yorker, so I love this especially a lot. But there's a David Bowie New York City subway station takeover, and it's the Broadway Lafayette station in Manhattan. And Bowie lived in Soho, and so he was often at that station. So the subway has a Twitter stream, and it usually posts stuff about delays and service changes. And, you know, usually when you read it, it makes you angry. And the other day, their tweet said, rail control to Major Tom. And then it told about the fact that this David Bowie takeover is happening. And so there's this huge celebrated Bowie exhibition, which has been all over the world. And it's now in its final public showing. It's at the Brooklyn Museum. So this is your last chance to see it. And so that's what this is about. And the combination of that and the fact that Bowie lived in Soho, there's like kind of a combination Bowie shrine and an ad for the show. And one of the central attractions outside of huge spreads of Bowie's face on the rafters are designer Metro cards. And there were 250,000 of them made. And of course, they were gone this morning. And they were good for just 2 rides. And there were people waiting in line at 3 o'clock this morning to buy them so they could resell them. But the Brooklyn Museum has a multimedia exhibit, and the way it's described is organized with unprecedented access to David Bowie's personal archive. This exhibition explores the creative process of an artist whose sustained reinventions, innovative collaborations, and bold characterizations revolutionize the way we see music, inspiring people to shape their own identities while challenging social traditions. And it's an extraordinary exhibit. And Spotify actually made the collectible Metro cards, which you can't have anymore. But you know, it'll be there, I think, until the end of May, and it's fabulous.
I would absolutely love to see that.
Come to New York.
David Bowie is one of my absolute favorite musicians, composers. He was very visual. He was very, visual, thoughtful about how his albums were presented, how his persona was presented. He put a lot of thought into and explored the idea of identity itself. So I would absolutely love to see that. And imagine Spotify is pretty good marketers in addition to being a streaming service, because the idea of the Metro tokens being or cards being branded with Bowie is just brilliant. So
the whole thing is just fabulous. You really should book a trip to New York, Dave.
I might take you up on that. This is pretty out of this world. This actually a story from the MIT lab. A couple of researchers named Arnav Kapoor and Patty Mace, I believe is how you pronounce the last name, have developed a thing called alter ego. Speaking of egos, speaking of identities. So alter ego is a wearable device that allows you to converse in natural language with machines, with AI assistants, with services, and with other people without actually speaking. You just simply vocalize internally what you're intending to say, and the device picks it up through electrical signals that are induced by subtle but deliberate movements that take place inside your head, basically, when you intentionally vocalize internally. So you think about
your mind, you're saying?
Basically, yes. So if you intentionally try to say, say what you're going to say, but you actually don't vocalize it, you just think about it. There are some movements or some electrical signals that go along with that activity, that thought activity, that can be picked up by this device. They call it bidirectional natural language computing system. It's users receive oral output through bone conduction earphones, so you can hear what's going on, right? It doesn't obstruct your physical senses. It enables you to transmit and receive streams of information to and from the device or another person without any obvious observable action. It's very discreet. You don't have invasion of privacy issues. You don't have people walking through the skyways in Minneapolis talking to themselves. But yet another indicator. We've talked a long time over the course of our many podcasts about the trend toward effortless computing, right? This is just another indicator towards that trend.
But this is the answer to the age-old relationship question. What are you thinking? Okay, well, talking about out of this world, you can now have the astronauts at the International Space Station read stories, bedtime stories, to the children of Earth. This is called Story Time from Space, and they read these while floating around the International Space Station. It's a project of the nonprofit Global Space Education Foundation, and the goal is to merge STEM and literacy in a way that's easy for children. So now they're reading stories, but soon they'll also be conducting experiments. And the latest book to be read, and there's a video, is Notable Notebooks, written by scientists from Galileo to Jane Goodall in their notebooks. It's written by Jessica Fries Gaither and read by astronaut Joseph Acaba. So the Storytime from Space team includes astronauts, scientists, educators, and the program's guideline for choosing the books is that they have to be able to be read in about 15 minutes. They have to involve some type of concept regarding STEM, and most important, what they talk about has to be accurate. And some of the readers volunteer and some are invited because of their expertise. So Dr. Kate Rubins was asked to read Rosie Revere, Engineer, which is a story about a girl who dreams of being an engineer. And that's because Dr. Rubins completed her first space flight on Expedition 4849, where she became the first person to sequence DNA in space. She spent 115 days in space and conducted 2 spacewalks. So, and then they have a scientific experiment on buoyancy. And the question was, what happens if we put styrofoam balls or steel balls into water on Earth? What do you suppose will happen if we do the same thing in a free fall condition on the International Space Station? That hasn't happened yet. Anyway, I don't know what would happen if they did that, but I think it's a pretty cool idea.
That's very cool. I love that idea.
And they're floating around, and in the background, you see the other astronauts, who are doing whatever, fixing things, whatever they're doing, and they're wonderful.
That's great. That's great. This is a story from Fast Company by Eli Anzalati. Has to do with something that's happening in my own backyard here, which is pretty cool. So hospitals have that harsh overhead fluorescent light, right? It's bright enough for doctors and physicians to treat their patients, but it's really harsh on the eyes, and it obscures the innate sense of day and night if you are a patient sitting in the hospital for many days or overnight or whatever. So fluorescent floodlighting is not especially conducive to healing and recovery, it turns out, and a lot of that has to do with obscuring the sense of night and day, right? So enter Hue, Philips' wireless LED home lighting system that you can control your lights with. They have their system allows you to change around 16 million different colors in the lights. It adjusts the saturation and the intensity, and it can be used to boost concentration or for relaxation. So last year, Philips partnered with the University of Minnesota's Masonic Children's Hospital to install a pilot of adjustable LED lighting systems in a handful of patients' rooms. in the hospital's pediatric intensive care unit. So there's around 10 lights. They're not just directly overhead, which is kind of standard, but that at various points along the ceiling and the walls. And both hospital staff and patients can control it through a tablet-like interface. The lights automatically adjust according to the time of day and the number of occupants in the room, but the manual controls can override the settings. So the new system gives patients some sense of time of day, especially in the ICU where delirium affects up to 80% of patients. And so those who are affected by delirium tend to have longer hospital stays and a lower 6-month survival rate than those without it. So while the pilot program is too new for them to understand the data they've collected for it yet, they believe that the lights will allow patients to sleep more soundly and avoid delirium. Philips is trying to strike a balance between providing caregivers and doctors the conditions to do their work and giving patients the measure of control over their environment. The lights on the walls on either side of the bed emit different colors, which the patients can adjust at will and provide a distraction for children. At night, patients can play music and have the lights synchronized to the music. So the lighting system also finally reduces per room energy consumption by as much as 80%. So pretty cool pilot program going on.
That certainly is. And, having spent, unfortunately, a lot of time in a hospital this year, the lighting was awful. And when I was in the rehab place after the hospital, I kept turning the lights off in the dining room because they were just so freaking bright, and then they come and they turn them back on. But that would just, it's upsetting to be constantly in that kind of harsh lighting. But I've seen some wonderful experiments with children's hospital settings, and that one sounds like a great one. So this is a client of yours, Dave, Walmart. They had a young man, 11-year-old Mason Ramsey, came into the Walmart in Harrisburg, Illinois, stood right near the blow-up mattress aisle in his cowboy boots and his hat and his too-tight belt, as someone noticed, and he burst into an a cappella version of Hank Williams' Lovesick Blues, yodels and all. And he's from Golconda, Illinois, population 700, and now he's a star. The video went viral, and he was invited to appear on Ellen. And there, he was presented with an invitation to live his dream of performing at the Grand Ole Opry. And he was given a $15,000 college scholarship from Walmart. This made him cry. And then he was soon invited to Coachella, where the crowd went absolutely insane when the DJ Welton said, "My next guest needs no introduction." And he walked out, and everybody just flew into screaming, And after that, Walmart threw him a live stream concert at the same store in Harrisburg where his first performance went viral. And he said at the end, "If the good Lord's willing and the creek don't rise, I'll see y'all again next time," which of course is a famous Johnny Cash goodbye. And his Instagram page, which is managed by his grandmother, has 1.2 million followers, and it's called Lil Hank Williams Instagram. His YouTube channel has his YouTube channel had 25,000 subscribers, and on one of the videos on his YouTube channel, he's sitting on a rock in front of a lake with this ginormous guitar that's much bigger than he is, and he says, "This one's for all my fans," and then he sings "I Saw the Light." And he's got 208,000 followers on Twitter, where his account is also administered by his grandma. And apparently he's done these impromptu concerts at Walmart before, but they didn't go viral. But now Mason Ramsey is, he's a famous guy. And on his Twitter account, it says, "Mason Ramsey, musician band is the category. No snake in these boots. Follow for more Little Hank. Page managed by grandmother, Frances Ramsey." He's so adorable. Yeah. So I also will include the actual version of Hank Williams singing Lovesick Blues.
Yeah. Very good. Yeah, that was a topic of a lot of buzz and hilarity and adorableness or whatever around the office when that first came out. This is a great story.
He's so cute. He has this great big hat.
Yeah. So this story is in best because of how well it's done, not necessarily because of the topic. So this is a too long must-read article. It's called "The Corporate Surveillance of Everyday Life." It is a report basically put out by Cracked Labs. Wolfie Crystal is the author. And it's just a pretty comprehensive report of the Surveillance Society. So I'm just going to give you the table of contents so you can get an idea of what's in it. And then we'll put a link to it in the show notes at beyondsocialmediashow.com/225. So here's the table of contents. Analyzing people in finance, insurance, and healthcare, large-scale collection and use of consumer data, data brokers in the business of personal data, real-time monitoring of behaviors across everyday life, linking, matching, and combining digital profiles, managing consumers and behaviors, personalization and testing, Dragnet, everyday life, marketing data, and risk analytics, mapping the commercial tracking and profiling landscape towards a society of pervasive digital social control, ? It's comprehensive. It has a lot of graphs and illustrations. And if you really want to understand how everything's being tracked these days, it's a good read. So we'll include a link to that in the show
terrifying.
notes.
I like the name Cracked Labs.
Yeah.
And what was the name of the author?
Wolfie Crystal.
Yeah, that's got to be a made-up name. You can't make.
I think it's German. Maybe it's Wolfgang.
I don't know, but it's a great name. So back in episode 174, we covered a Google engineer named Supasorn, Suajanakorn, who developed software that makes fake videos of people saying things they didn't actually say in really remarkably convincing videos. So we had an example of that in episode 174. And as he thought more about it, he became worried about the potential misuse of his team's software. Yeah, right. So he's now working with the AI Foundation, and he's created Reality Defender, a browser-integrated app that automatically detects fake photos and videos. And in the original tool, fed with the right input, you can create a realistic fake video that mimics the way a person talks by very closely observing existing footage of their mouth and teeth to create a perfect lip sync. An algorithm crunches huge sets of visual data of photos and videos and then generates a 3D moving model. And then small believable details like really subtle mannerisms and expressions are blended in, and you get an unsettlingly accurate detail. So he was so worried that his tool is going to fall into the wrong hands that he introduced his new software at a TED conference in Vancouver on April 11th, where he said video manipulation will be used in malicious ways unless countermeasures are in place. So I am working on a countermeasure. And so thank goodness for that, right? But Reality Defender will automatically scan for manipulated pictures or videos, and it will also allow users to report apparent fakes to use the power of the crowd to bolster the defense. And there was a really interesting article in BuzzFeed, how to spot a deep fake like the Barack Obama Jordan Peele video, and we'll have an example of that in the show notes. And it's just remarkable. You know, I think their headline said, "You won't believe what Barack Obama is saying in this video." And yeah, that's because he wasn't saying it, folks. You know, really horrifying stuff.
Yeah, we all have to become much more savvy media consumers and much more highly literate media consumers. And media literacy used to be one thing back in the day. It has never really been taught, but it's essential in this day and age, and understanding how this stuff works and how to spot, having the tools to spot the fake we need to have something that's true. We need to have the truth, right?
Well, I think that it has been taught. Howard Rheingold, for example, has been teaching this and predicted it back in like 1996. And I took a course from him on how to develop a bullshit quotient, which is all about finding fake news and vetting the information that you have. And we all need to become more
It
literate. I
needs to
don't
be
think it's
taught in
happened.
schools. It needs to be
Absolutely, from first
schools.
grade on. Yeah. So do you have more good news?
I do not. I'm
I
tapped
have
out of
one,
good
I
news.
have one more. This is really very funny. This is from a New York Times story by Niraj Choksky. And this is about, the headline is Robot Conquers One of the Hardest Human Tasks, Assembling IKEA Furniture. And the first paragraph is so fabulous. Robots have taken our jobs, learned our chores, and beaten us at our own games. Now, researchers in Singapore say they've trained one to perform another task known to confound humans, figuring out how to assemble furniture from IKEA. So in the a team from Nanyang Technological University programmed a robot to create and execute a plan to put together a IKEA's $25 solid pine chair on its own. So that they needed a medley of human skills to do that, and they explained their work in a study published in the journal Science Robotics, a link to the journal study. But the best comments on Twitter about it were, if you could afford a robot to assemble, why would you be buying at IKEA? But could it drink wine at the same time? It looks like two robots in the video. I don't know. Look, if it's
It's
one
cheating.
robot. I think it is cheating, really.
You do need two people to put together some
One to
IKEA.
hold it and one to turn the, yeah. One time I decided when I was going to quit smoking that I was going to build model ships. I had this great idea. And I ordered a model building kit, and it came with like 4,000 pieces, and the directions were in Italian. Needless to say, I never finished.
Before Google Translate.
Yeah, right, exactly. I never finished that project. So, well, we have bad news too, don't we?
We do. In fact, this is something that maybe we could apply the reality defender. Is that it called?
Yeah.
Maybe we could apply the reality defender to this next story and see if it works. This is from an Engadget story by John Fingus, and researchers have produced an AI system that automatically produces the Flintstone scenes based on text descriptions. The system's called Craft, and they've trained Craft to recognize elements from the cartoon The Flintstones by feeding it more than 25,000 3-second clips, each of which includes descriptions of who was in the scene and what was happening in the scene. And then from there, the AI only needs a line or two referring to a scene to stitch together characters, backgrounds, and props from those that sample data. It appears to work really well with simple sentences, but it stumbles fairly badly when you put more complex scenes in it or ask it to create more complex scenes. But it just needs bigger data sets and before it starts putting animators out of work. But
yeah, there goes another profession. It's terrible. Well, I think that the story of what happened last week at the Starbucks in Philadelphia has gone quite viral, and I have this in the worst stories of the week, but it has good and bad elements, and it's in the worst section because of what set it in motion. And you know that last Thursday 2 black men were handcuffed and arrested at a Philadelphia Starbucks, and their crime was that they were sitting at a table waiting for a friend when a manager called the police to remove them. And from what's come out since then, that happened 2 minutes after they came in. And while they were being arrested, the friend they said they were meeting came in and saw them being handcuffed, and he said, he was there to meet them, and what did they do wrong? And both of the men were there to discuss a real estate deal with the friend, who's white. And the friend, Andrew Yaffe, runs a real estate development firm, and they were discussing an investment opportunity. And everybody's got a camera these days, and so multiple people recorded it on cell phones. And he asked, does anybody else think this is ridiculous? And somebody nearby said, this is absolute discrimination. They didn't do anything. And the 2 men, who later said that they feared for their lives, remain seated, and they calmly speak to authorities. And then the officer starts clearing chairs out of the way, and he tells them they're not free to leave. And the two men stand up to be handcuffed. They do not resist. They very calmly walk out. Well, the next day there were protests, and local Black Lives Matter activist Asa Khalif organized the protest. He said that the president of Starbucks issued an apology, and he said he rejected it because he said it was about saving face. If the company was serious, it would have fired the manager. Well, the manager is no longer with the company, but the bad element here is that the police commissioner, Richard Ross, who's Black, said on Facebook Live, the police did not just happen upon this event. They didn't just walk into Starbucks to get coffee. They were called there for a service, and that service had to do with quelling a disturbance that had to do with trespassing. They did nothing wrong, except there was no disturbance. So in Starbucks' first statement, they said they were sorry and they were looking into it. And the police confrontation was on video that's now been viewed more than 11 million times, fueling a backlash and drawing for responses from the police commissioner, the mayor. The mayor said, I'm heartbroken to see Philadelphia in the headlines for an incident that, at least based on what we know, appears to exemplify what racial discrimination looks like in 2018. And then on Saturday, Starbucks CEO Kevin Johnson again said the situation is reprehensible in a video message this time, and he offered his deepest apologies. And then Howard Schultz, who's the chairman of Starbucks, said he was personally apologizing to the two men and said that Starbucks will close all of its 8,000 stores on May 29th for racial bias training. And he said the manager who called the police was no longer there. He said the two men who were arrested will be involved in the anti-bias training. It's really, it could have turned ugly so fast. And now the company is on the defensive, but I believe the way they've handled it is quite extraordinary. And Starbucks has, especially Schultz, has really been in the forefront of trying to create social change. And Howard Schultz has created jobs. He's paid for employees to go to college. He hires military families. The company tries really hard. And this is not a Starbucks thing. This is a national issue that needs to be dealt with. So maybe Starbucks can make a dent. I really feel for those two guys because they did nothing.
Yeah, I mean, two poor decisions that basically created this. The manager's obviously calling the police, and the police, once they got there and surveyed the situation, not having the judgment to say there's nothing going on here.
Yeah.
Right. Maybe even from what I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, the patrons who got arrested, did they buy any coffee?
They never got to. They never got to do that.
Okay.
But okay. I mean,
because my first reaction when I read it was like, well, I mean, you go there, you kind of the price of meeting some places to buy a cup of coffee. So if they didn't do that,
when your friend gets there. They were waiting for their friend, and their friend walked in.
I'm not blaming them, but yeah.
I mean, can I tell you how many times I've walked into a Starbucks just to use the bathroom? Did anybody stop me? No.
Yeah, that's not going to happen. It's not going to happen to me, and it's not going to happen to you.
Well, exactly, and that was, was being in Starbucks while Black. I mean, that's what happened.
Yeah. But the other thing, I mean, Starbucks, as you've said, they're a very progressive company. They have devoted a lot of resources to a lot of good causes, and I think are going to be okay because of the response to this was immediate and credible, because they have built up that credibility over the course of many years from being the kind of company that they are. Closing all their stores on the 29th demonstrates, one, it's the right thing to do, first of all, and to do the racial training cost them, a lot of money to do it, but it's the right thing to do, and it's the right way to respond to this. So they're doing that for the other employees, because this was clearly a breakdown in the policy of how their employees conduct themselves, right? So that's the right thing to do, but also it demonstrates to everybody who's a Starbucks customer on the 29th and they come to get their Starbucks and the store's closed, they know why.
Right, exactly. And, you know, Starbucks tried, I think it was 2 years ago, to have the barristers start a conversation about race relations.
Yeah,
And
right.
people were
Yep,
like, I
yep,
got to go to work. I don't have time for this, you
yep,
know. But I mean,
yep.
it's not like this company doesn't care about this issue. It's not like they don't care about other issues. Schultz started something a couple of years ago where you wore this necklace saying that you were willing to hire veterans. I mean, you know, they've done some really innovative things. And I sincerely hope that Howard Schultz will run for president one day soon, because I'd work for him for nothing.
Yeah, well, I think this will ultimately prove to be a case study in how the benefits of your cause marketing pay off when
Yeah,
you are actually committed
right. When it is sincere, you know,
to cause
and I mean the
marketing where
big
they just
difference that happened here is that Howard Schultz went to Philadelphia and met with the people
yeah,
there in Philadelphia on all sides of the controversy. He didn't sit in his office, as so many of the apologists have done, and make a video that he was clearly reading. He was talking from his heart.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
we'll see how that, you know, what happens there. But
Sure.
it's been fascinating to watch. So does that bring us to shiny new objects?
It does. What do you got, BL?
Well, I've kind of an interesting one. There's something called Any Image, and it's a free tool that lets you turn any image into a clickable social card that sends you directly to a link from any social network. So this came through my friend Toby Bloomberg, and I made one that leads to our episode number 216. That'll be in the show notes, but it takes you a couple of seconds to make it and add content to it and then share it on whatever networks you want to share it on. And the link, and this is one of the things, like you can click on the photo to go to the story. So it's a really useful thing, and it's
Right.
free.
Very cool. Here's another free cool thing. It's a free resource that I can't believe I haven't found yet. I just discovered this. It's a CXO Talk. It's a video podcast by Michael Krigsman, who interviews C-suite leaders. Their guests and his guests include leaders from Harvard, from Dun and Bradstreet, from Neiman Marcus, from Bosch, from Deloitte. The topics include healthcare innovation, digital transformation, future of retail, drones, data and analytics, a bunch more. It's a great resource for one. The interviews are great. The guests are fantastic. If you want to understand how C-suite leaders think, this is a fantastic podcast to follow. If you want to get up to speed on an industry real quickly, a lot of healthcare stuff, a lot of technology stuff. It's a great resource to just understand an industry very quickly. So CXO Talk, this podcast, we'll put a link to it in the show notes.
Very cool. So I found a one-page internet resource the other day that I can't pronounce. HVPR, I think is how you say it. But what it does is it aggregates the internet into a constantly updated page. So it pulls headlines, images, and links from Reddit, Dig, BuzzFeed, Imgur, Google News, Yahoo, Reuters, YouTube, Vice, Quartz, Medium, Twitter, CNN, New York Times, and on and on and on. And there's a free version and one that's $3.50 a month that you can customize. But the free version is great. And you know, I have it bookmarked and have it in my browser now, and I check it several times a day. And I have found news there that before I found it anywhere else, so it's kind of cool.
Yeah, very cool. Is that it for your?
No, I have one more. I
Yeah,
found via a nonprofit Tech for Good. I found a motherlode of low-cost and free online tools and mobile apps. And the headline on this article said they were for nonprofits, but is a motherlode of useful apps that are not just for nonprofits. Just the last 8 are for nonprofits only. So I'll include a link to this terrific story, and there's lots of useful stuff in there. I think you're going to like it.
very, very good. Very good. Maybe we'll mine that for future episodes, right?
Yeah.
So let's wrap this up. BL, what day is it tomorrow?
Saturday.
No, it's Friday tomorrow.
Oh, Friday.
Actually.
It's Friday.
The Friday, the what? Not the 19th.
The 20th.
It's April 20th.
Yes.
420.
420.
Hint, hint, nudge, nudge. Say no more.
Is it your birthday?
You don't get the reference?
No.
420?
No.
420 is a reference to pot.
Oh, well, there you go.
So that tells us something about BL.
Don't think so.
So we'll wrap this up with the daily numbers regarding a 420 reference. 2/3 of companies now have a medical marijuana policy. This is from a Higher Right survey of 6,000 HR officers, recruiters, and managers. 9 states have legalized recreational use, and 29 states now allow medical use. So the survey finds that 67% of employees said they had policies addressing medical use of marijuana. Only 6 years ago, only 21% of employers said they had such a policy or planned to create one. So a huge increase in only 6 years. 22% of companies cited medical marijuana as one of their biggest compliance challenges. Tell that to the NFL.
You know, what is their policy, that you can't do your medical marijuana at work? I mean,
I think pretty much you can't come to work stoned, but you know what? If you have a reason for using marijuana medically, let's say, so for argument's sake, you have chronic pain, you have arthritis, and you have chronic pain, and you're in pain all the time, pretty much. So shouldn't you be able to alleviate that pain through medical marijuana while you're at work?
yes, but not all medical marijuana contains THC, which is the part that gets you high. Some of it is CBD, which I give to my dog and for his arthritis, and it has the same impact, but it doesn't have the fun part.
Right. But you've got if you got drug testing in your workplace, then that still might show up. I'm not sure. I don't know
of
about
course
drug
it would
tests,
show up,
yeah.
and if you had an excuse for it, well, lucky you.
Yeah.
One of my neighbors asked me today, a lot of new people moving into the building, are you smelling pot more in the building? I went, oh, tell me what floor, I'll go there. But not on my floor. Anyway, that wraps up episode 225 of the Beyond Social Media Show. And David Erickson is on Twitter as D. Erickson. He blogs at eStrategyblog.com and creativepr.com/blog, both of which you should subscribe to because they're always terrific. He's on YouTube at eStrategy. And I'm BL Ochman. I'm on Twitter as @What'sNext. I blog at What's Next Blog. I'm What's Next Blog on YouTube. My business site is blochman.com. And Mother's Day is coming, so you should visit funwalkers.com, my site for funny license plates for mobility devices. Excellent for your mother or your grandmother or your grandfather or your uncle who use a walker. Beyond Social Media Show is at BeyondSocialMediaShow.com, and you will find this episode at BeyondSocialMediaShow.com/225. We are on YouTube. We are on Twitter as BS Media Show. You'll find us on iTunes, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, and also on Amazon Echo. And all you have to do there is say, play Beyond Social Media Show, and there will be. So that brings, I did that well, didn't I?
Yeah.
I never said Alexa. So that brings us to the end of the show. And we thank you for listening and watching. And we'll be back next week.
Thanks for watching.